What we're going to be talking about today is ratios. Okay. Now, the problem that we're going to be talking about is we're going to be actually trying to solve for two unknown numbers. The problem reads, the ratio of two numbers is 8 to 5. Also, 3 times the larger number is 3 less than 5 times the smaller number. What are the numbers? The ratio of two numbers is 8 to 5. Also, 3 times the larger number is 3 less than 5 times the smaller number. What are the numbers? So the first thing that jumps out at me is the first sentence. It says the ratio of two numbers is 8 to 5. So we know we're dealing with ratios. We know a ratio can be written 3 ways. It can be written 8 to 5. It can be written 8 to 5. And it can be written 8 to 5. So there's 3 different ways the ratio can be written. 8 to 5, 8 to 5, and 8 to 5, or 8 over 5. So simply put, a ratio is nothing but a fraction. Let's consider a ratio a fraction. So if we think of a ratio as a fraction, we can think of this number in this way, of the ratio being 8 to 5. And all a fraction is simply a division problem. A fraction is a division problem. So in this case, the division problem is 8 divided by 5. So this written here can be also written like this. 8 divided by 5. It can also be written as this. 8 divided by 5. So we got 2 other ways we can write a ratio. How about that? 8 to 5, 8 divided by 5, 8 to 5, 8 divided by 5, 8 divided by 5, that's 8 to 5, 8 divided by 5, 8 divided by 5. Think of it that way. Because if you think of it as a division problem, it's much simpler to view it. So when we know a ratio is a division problem, and then the second sentence it says that 5 times the larger number is 3 less than, 3 times the larger number is 3 less than 5 times the smaller number. And then it asks the question, what are the numbers? What are the numbers? So if we want to know what the numbers are, we have to think about the ratio that they gave us. And the ratio that they gave us is 8 to 5. The ratio that they gave us is 8 to 5. So we know that the ratio is 8 to 5. And they're asking us to find out what the 2 numbers are that we're missing. We know that the first number that we don't know, we have to assign a variable. And the second number that we don't know, we have to assign a variable. Once we've done this, we have a ratio on this side, on the left side, and we have a ratio on the right side. Once we do this, connected with an equal sign, we now have what is called a proportion. And since we have a proportion, that tells us that whatever is on the left side is equal to what's on the right side. And since we don't know what x is and y is, we have to use the information in the second sentence to determine what x and y is. So the second sentence says that 3 times the larger number is 3 less than 5 times the smaller number. Here's our larger number, x, because we know that x is going to be, in proportion to this left side, is going to be 8 times. And then in proportion to the right side, in proportion to the left side on y, it's going to be a proportion of 5. So we know the larger number is x. We're going to say larger number is equal to x, and smaller number is equal to y. So larger number and smaller number. So we know that 3 times the larger number, the larger number is x, so 3 times the larger number is 3x. And that's equal to 3 less than 5 times the smaller number. 5 times the smaller number is 5y, and 3 less than that is minus 3. So now we have the proportion here, and then we also have an equation. From this proportion, we can create an equation to go along with this equation, because since we're solving for 2 variables, we're going to use 2 equations to solve for those 2 variables. So we're going to make an equation out of this proportion, and the way we do that is we do cross multiplication, because we know that if we do cross multiplication, then each side of the equal sign are going to be the same. So the first side of the equal sign, we're going to have 8 times y, which is 8y, and then 5 times x is equal to 5x. So now we have 2 equations. We have equation 1, and then we have equation 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve this equation in relation to one of the other variables. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve for either y or solve for x. And let's solve for x. Okay. So we're going to solve for x. We're going to isolate x. We isolate x here, get x by itself, and we see that this x is being multiplied by 5. Since this x is being multiplied by 5, in order for us to undo this multiplication, we have to divide by 5 in order to get x by itself. And since we divide by 5 on this right side of the equation, we have to divide by 5 on the left side of the equation. So now we have x by itself. X is equal to 8 over 5y. So now that we have solved for x, we're going to take this value of x here and plug it in to that value of x. Once we plug this value here into this x, then we're going to have all y's, and then we'll be able to solve for y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this here after I erase it, and then we're going to be able to solve for y. So what we just did, we solved for y. So let's just go back through what we did. We actually took this equation, 8y is equal to 5x. And we got that from the proportion. We solved for x, and we got x is equal to 8 over 5y. We took the 8 over 5y, or 8y over 5, however you want to say it, and we plugged it in to the value of x. That gave us an equation that had all y variables. All we have to do is combine the like terms, combine the y's, and combine the constants, and then solve for y, and we solve for y, and y was equal to 15. Okay? Now since we